Hi, I'm Cris Tovani.
And hi, I'm Sam Bennett. I am Cris Tovani's instructional coach. And we are really excited to be here today to talk about Chris's new book, So What Do They Really Know? So let's just kick off with this. Why this book now? Why do teachers need this book?
I think right now I was just really thinking that teachers needed support on how to assess and grade fairly and equitably. I think there's so much emphasis on assessment now that I was really wanting to figure out, with the help of my students, how to grade them fairly so they weren't tempted to cheat and play that game of school, so that they were really sharing honestly what they knew and what they didn't know, so I could then do a better job trying to meet their needs.
So every single piece of research that is coming out, kind of starting with that overview of the research by Willem and Black about formative assessment being the thing that closes the achievement gap. So that idea of where kids are and how you're going to move them forward on a daily basis, not waiting till the end. How do you talk us through that in your book? How does that emerge?
Well, yeah, and I think with this whole progress monitoring that teachers are being asked to do, that was really a challenge for me, because teachers who have more than 25 contacts a day really struggle figuring out who their kids are and what they need. And I think the power of that formative assessment is that it allows teachers to give feedback, so kids can get better quicker. And I think that was just one of the pieces I was trying to figure out. How do I take that research of what we should be doing and make it practical and manageable? And I think that's one thing that is really a benefit to me staying in the classroom, is that I can really try it out. And there's so many things that people will say, oh, teachers need to do this, teachers need to do that. But it's a lot easier said than done. And so what I'm trying to do is say, okay, if this is what research says, what could this look like in the classroom?
So tell me about that. Tell me some of those key pieces. What are some key pieces of evidence that kids give you that help you know what they know and then figure out what they need next?
Well, every day I want the kids to leave some, a track of their thinking. And, if you've got 5 different classes, then you're going to get 150 pieces of thinking. And so try to figure out, how do I manage that? How do I go through and look for patterns? How do I use it? Do I use it just to put a grade in the grade book, or do I use it to inform my instruction? And what I really discovered while I was working on this book is that as a teacher, if I can't manage it, I don't do it.
You don't use it anyway.
I don't use it. So I've got to figure out a way where I can manage this grading, assessing piece, this progress monitoring piece, this moving every kid forward piece. I got to figure out some management systems so it's feasible and practical, because if I don't, then I just sweep it under the carpet and pretend it's not there.
So talk to me about those key pieces of evidence that you feel like you do every week.
I really tried to carefully think through the whole conferring piece. How is it different from monitoring? How do I use conferring to assess, but also instruct and give real-time feedback? I also tried to really lay out how to use the debrief, the reflection time, to assess kids as well, and plan for that next day's mini lesson. A big portion of the book talks about workshop model and how that fits in. How a workshop model can not only be used as a structure for planning, but also a structure for assessment. And it fits so nicely with formative assessment tools, because I have a chance to teach the kids something, let them show me what they understand, look at those pieces of thinking that they've left for patterns, and figure out what they need next the following day. And I can do this pretty quickly, and teachers will see that it's very manageable for them as well, as they look at the they'll hear stories from ninth grade English kids, struggling readers, juniors, and also college-bound seniors. So there's a wide range of kids that they'll get to see learning taking place in it, and as well as assessment.
So something I've noticed in this book that's really different in your first 2 books, and also I've gotten to be in your classroom for the past 10 years, so the shift in your practice on this use of learning targets and really this purposeful planning. So I think that's something that's exciting, and I think people are going to be really excited to read more in your book. You really crack open your brain a lot about the planning. So you share a little bit. What have your big ahas about planning been over the past few years?
Yeah, I think in the first 2 books I talk so much about strategy instruction, and one of the pieces that was missing was the content. it's great to help kids make connections, but how does that help them understand the curriculum and the content better? And so I have been really working hard trying to learn about Rick Stiggin's work with learning targets and what is a learning target and how do I name for kids what I want them to know and be able to do, and how do I write it in such a way that it's so clear to them that they can look at it before we even start a unit of study and know what they need. So instead of me just giving my 2 cents worth about what they need, they're having a say in it as well. And I think that's that huge piece that we read about in the formative assessment research, is that kids also have to be a part of this assessment process. And so it's not just about me from on high giving them grades or points. It's really about, okay, here's what you need to know and be able to do. Here's some really strong models of what that work can look like. Here's some weak models of what that might look like. Here's some lessons that I'm going to share with you. What do you need? How do you, what's your next step so you can, continue in this learning process? And the learning targets are really cool. They're so much different than objectives. Objectives are kind of like, they're so vague, and it's almost like you're warning the kids that this is what they should know and be able to do. But I think so often kids look at objectives and they're like, okay, so what? I have no idea what that means. Right. Learning targets really are designed for them to know what they're shooting for, know what they're aiming for.
And I think your use of learning targets in particular really goes along with your beliefs about who owns the learning, and that the kids do. So you're just continually saying to them, okay, here's our target, show me how you're getting closer, And I've just also noticed the really intentional differentiation that you're able to do around those learning targets, I think is so exciting.
The learning targets are great because I'm no longer now the adversary as the grader or the tester. We've got this idea in mind of what we want to be able to know and do at the end, and the steps along the way that we want to hit in order to get to that end point. And so now, instead of kids feeling like they have to fake me out and cheat or play the game of school, now they can be really honest about what they know and what they don't know. So then I can come in and really do so much better job. It's so hard for me to assess accurately when they're faking it. And so when they're really honest about what they're doing, we just both make so much more progress in that teaching and learning cycle.
Something else I really love in the book is how explicit you are with the different types of learning targets. And I think you are particularly brilliant at writing these like process learning targets. So that idea of, okay, the only way to get better at reading is if you increase your stamina, if you read for longer chunks of time and you read more sophisticated texts over time. And so like I think when you write that learning target, if starting in the beginning of the year, I can read for 7 minutes before, and then goes to 12 minutes and then goes to 16 minutes. And then, by the end of the year, when I was in there, they were reading for like 52 minutes, at a chunk. But it's not just that stamina for 52 minutes. It's that idea of that clear purpose of why they need to read for that amount of time. What did you notice about their stamina over the year different with your use of learning targets?
I'll have long-term learning targets as well as these kind of daily/weekly learning targets that are almost like the stair steps that help kids scaffold to get to those long-term targets. So the guiding question of how do I get unstuck, I can have long-term learning targets like I can read for 50 minutes without stopping. And then a daily learning target might be I can't help myself when I read the words and think about something else. And so I'm trying to re-engage. Yeah, so there's just kind of this, I'm trying to get everything to sort of weave together so kids are more engaged longer. And I think that's, for me, the last couple of years I've really seen that all roads lead to engagement. And I noticed that when kids quit or stop, it's because they don't know what else to do next. And so this is, I circle back to workshop model again, and how conferring is a way for me to not only help kids individually, but also work with small groups. So if I have kids that are absent, it's not the end of the world. I have a structure in place where I can catch them up. So what I've really tried to do in this book is listen really carefully to teachers' questions about kids who were struggling, about kids that they weren't sure how to help or take to that next step. And it all circled back to this, how do you know your kids well enough to meet the individual needs?
Knowing kids deeply. So what are those pieces, or how do you get to know kids deeply? What do you think the keys are to that when you have 150 contacts?
Yeah. Well, the number one way I think that I need to, that helps me get to know kids deeply is to not talk the whole 90 minutes that I have them. So I've got to give them ways to show me what they know. So oftentimes it's through writing, oftentimes it's through conferences, oftentimes it's listening in on their group discussions. So it's ways for them to really produce work and to show thinking. So every day I have to plan for them to, I have to plan something that I'm going to teach them that's going to help them get smarter about whatever it is we're working on. And then I have to give them a big block of time where they can practice that work. And then I also have to have time for them to sit back and do some self-reflection. When I share that model with teachers, sometimes they'll say, well, I need more than just that short little bit of time to teach. Well, I do too. We all do. We all need the entire, every single solitary minute. But I think getting to know your kids well means you're not teaching the whole class the whole time.
Well, you're not talking the whole time, right? Yeah.
So figure it out. Yeah, you're not doing, I'm thinking the lecture piece, 90 minutes. When I'm talking, it's hard for me to figure out what they're learning. So I've got to talk a little, I've got to let them read, write, and talk a lot. And then I have to give us both time and opportunities to do some reflection on what we did and how we got smarter that day.